Kaoru is a high school student who is not only ugly but broke as well. He starts renting out a cheap room, and just when he thinks that things are peaceful, a couple of girls invade his room. This results in Kaoru living with a couple of girls, all while doing Riz things to them. Kaoru finally moves into his new apartment, and his friend named Kenji helps him out with moving his stuff. Surprisingly, his landlord Shizuka is a girl who is the same age as him. This room is so ideal because Kaoru did not have to pay any down payments and the rent was only 5,000 yen. After settling in, Kaoru talks to his dad, who also had to relocate because of his job. He then goes to sleep and doesn't notice how his room shakes the whole night. The next day, Kaoru is at his part-time job along with Kenji, who tells Kaoru that his room is most likely haunted. However, he is confident that no ghost can scare him out, as 5,000 yen a month is a deal he won't let go of easily. Soon after, a worker asks Kaoru for assistance at a different location, and while walking, Kaoru falls in a pit and comes across a statue that apparently converses with him about how she has been waiting for his arrival. Turns out it was a dream, and he wakes up in the hospital a few hours later. The next day, Kenji tells Shizuka about everything, and she seems to be very respectful while talking to him. Kenji advises her not to be this respectful and to treat Kaoru like the trash he is. After school, Shizuka asks Kaoru to hang out, but he apologizes, telling her that he already has some place to be. Kenji informs Shizuka that he has joined the knitting club because he got invited during the acceptance announcement. On the other hand, Kaoru finally reaches the club room and witnesses the beautiful club president sitting there on her own. Harumi greets him and lets Kaoru know that she was at the hospital yesterday. Apparently, her body is quite fragile as well and has to go in for periodic checkups. Afterward, Harumi inquired if the knitting club was a good fit for Kaoru, as there were several good sports-related clubs that he could have been more interested in. Kaoru replies that there is something he needs to do and needs knitting skills for its completion. After getting back home, Kaoru notices a little girl present in his room, scheming to make his life hell that night. After listening to her yapping, Kaoru asks what a girl like her is doing inside his room. She freaks out and questions if Kaoru is able to see her. He then picks her up and throws her away, but she instantly comes back inside through the door. Seeing her phase through the door surprises Kaoru, and he gets a little tense. The girl finally introduces herself as Sani and informs him that she is the ghost who lives in his room. Sani then tells Kaoru to get out of her room and starts attacking him when he fails to follow her orders. While dodging her attacks, Kaoru realizes something, but it is already too late as he gets hit by her attack. Surprisingly, Kaoru comes out unscratched as he protects himself with the blessed stuff that his grandmother gave him. Now he has something to help him fight back, and just when the battle is about to continue, a girl on a broomstick crashes into the room through the window. The girl then introduces herself as Magical Girl Rainbow Eureka. They think of her as a cosplayer, but she denies being a cosplayer and apologizes for breaking their window. The reason she came to this room is because there is a huge amount of magical energy inside, which can be really dangerous. She plans to fight the evil magic girl and throw them out of the room, just to get kicked out instead. With the nuisance gone, they try to continue their battle, but her continuous cries coming from outside ruin the mood, and the two of them call a temporary truce. Eventually, they let her inside but still don't believe the whole magical girl story. Suddenly, the tatami mat goes flying and two floating dolls emerge, introducing themselves as Karama and Karama. However, they are not the only ones, as a girl with huge talents comes out soon after. She introduces herself as Kiria and informs them that she is a member of the Kurano clan and a descendant of Earth people. It is a race of people who decided to live underground a few centuries ago. They recently discovered the location of a shrine that is important to their people, and the shrine happens to be the room where Kaoru is staying. Kiria promises to give him a huge amount of gold if he decides to leave the room, and Kaoru agrees in an instant.
Are you serious?
But his decision starts to waver when Kiria talks about her plan to invade the surface world, as they will be able to acquire an endless supply of ether energy from the shrine. In the end, Kaoru refuses the offer, which prompts Kiria to try some other methods. She gets a little too close to Kaoru, making him excited. Suddenly, a magic circle appears on the wall. A girl named Theomiles gets out and is mad at him for trying to riz her, but Kaoru tries to defend himself, explaining how there was nothing for him to grab in the first place.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
This statement makes Theomiles ever more angry, and she calls out her weapons. Luckily, Karama and Karama shield the others from her attack. Kaoru tries to attack her with his baseball bat, but ends up being as useless as ever. Sani uses this opportunity to get behind her and pulls up her skirt, revealing Theomiles' plot. They all notice the bear design and start making fun of her. This prompts her to call her robot knight, ordering it to blast the house off. Just when the knight is about to attack, another girl named Ruth comes out from the same magic circle and tells her that endangering another planet is a breach of the treaties on intergalactic war. Apparently, Theomiles' test is to make the life forms residing on Earth swear loyalty to her. Suddenly, Shizuka enters the room and loses it after seeing the horrible condition it is in. After beating the crap out of everyone, she listens to their stories and suggests solving it peacefully. After having a peaceful discussion, everyone realizes that none of them are willing to leave the apartment and they will have to solve this issue. Kaoru gets an idea and suggests using a card game to solve this issue. Kiriha explains the rules and informs that everyone will receive 1 tatami mat worth of space, and the remaining mat will be no man's land. Each tatami mat will be worth 180 points and the winner will keep on taking points from the loser, therefore expanding their territory. The first place will take points from the last one and the second will take points from the fourth, leaving the third one without any gain or loss of points. The person who loses his or her territory will lose the right to claim the room and they all will be playing 5 games a day. After playing the first game, Yurika came in last while Kaoru came in 4th place. After the games are complete, all of them return back to their houses while Yurika decides to stay in Kaoru's closet. The next morning, Kaoru is late for school and Sani explains how she tried to wake him up but couldn't. Before leaving, Kaoru leaves Sani in charge of the room. After school ends, Kaoru visits the knitting club and starts practicing. Harumi brings tea for him and teaches him the proper way to knot. Afterward, he takes a sip of tea and praises her for how good it tastes. Yurika stalks the two of them from outside the room and is jealous of the relationship they have. Before returning home, Kaoru discusses her club choice with Shizuka and seeing the two of them interact annoys Theomilis, who is keeping an eye on him from her control room. Ruth advises Theomilis to spend as much time with Kaoru as possible to increase her chances of success. Kiriha also stalks him and finds out that he likes to relax. After returning home, Kaoru witnesses Kiriha wearing an apron and cooking a meal for him. Everyone gathers to eat the meal and just when they are about to eat, Sani interrupts and requests Kaoru to let her possess him. He eventually allows her and she wraps around Kaoru from behind and waits for him to eat. Just then, Yurika comes out from the closet and requests them to let her eat some of it as well.
Why you bully me?
At first, everyone refuses, but after seeing her bawling face, Kaoru lets Yuriko eat from his portion. After taking a bite, everyone praises Kiriha for making such a tasty meal. After the meal, they play cards and this time Kaoru wins the game. Kaoru then goes to the bathroom and Theomilis confronts Kiriha about how she isn't only cooking meals but also cooking some schemes behind their backs. Kiriha replies and asks Theomilis about the things she had been plotting as well. The next day, Kaoru witnesses all 4 girls being admitted to his school and joining his class. This makes him furious as now the girls will make his school life a living hell as well. After getting acquainted, the girls warn Kiriha to watch out for the cultured boys and she acts all innocent, annoying Kaoru even further. Ruth and Theomilis also seem to be doing well as their classmates are impressed by how good their Japanese is. Meanwhile, Yurika is still a worthless loser as she has already failed a quiz. Sani tells Kaoru that the girls might be putting on some pressure on him and he decides to take his revenge. Later, Ruth and Theomilis walk in front of the most dangerous group of boys and Theomilis doesn't seem to be afraid when they try to pick a fight. Luckily, their class fellow arrives and takes them away after apologizing to the boys. On the other hand, Yurika receives a letter from an unknown person who wants to meet her behind the school building. This makes her think that Kaoru might have been the one who wrote this letter and has finally started to believe the magical girl stuff. Overjoyed, she starts making her way to the location just to trip and fall. Harumi happens to see her fall and helps Yurika get up. Afterward, she finally arrives at the location and a bunch of girls surround her, calling her their friend as she is a cosplayer just like them. She tries to make them believe that it's all a lie, but it's a little too late as the girls forcefully take her away. Kaoru smirks while watching her from a corner and is content about how well his plan worked. After that day, Yurika starts winning the card games without fail and surprises everyone. In the end, everyone is tired of playing cards every day and wants to play something new to compete for the apartment. Luckily, Kiriha already saw it coming and suggested competing in the upcoming inter-club marathon. Being the only man competing, Kaoru is confident that he can clap all of them. The next day, Kaoru goes to Harumi and requests her to join the inter-club marathon with him. Apparently, students can join the competition in pairs and each pair should be members of the same club. Harumi mentions her health problems, but Kaoru replies that she can just quit the marathon as soon as it starts. Only the better score among the duo will be counted as their main score. Eventually, she agrees to take part in the competition and is looking forward to running the whole thing instead of quitting at the start. On the other hand, the cosplay club girls forcefully make Yurika wear cute cosplay dresses as they want her to wear the same thing at the marathon as well. After school, Kaoru is about to practice with Harumi for the marathon. Thing reminds Sani how she is allowed to pick a participant before the event begins and will receive the same amount of prize they get in case of victory. She ends up choosing Kaoru as her pick and warns her about Kiriha and Theomilis. While Kiriha has picked the track team, Theomiles succeeds in making the violent boys of the school her puppets and plans to enter the competition with one of them. Suddenly, Theomiles receives a message from Ruth where she informs her about the 2 flying objects above their school. They seem to be Kiriha's flying dolls, and hearing Kiriha's name makes Theomiles want to mess around and orders Blue Knight to intercept the dolls. Luckily, the dolls are able to protect themselves and continue to attack Blue Knight as well. On the other hand, Kaoru is practicing with Himari, and seeing the 2 of them together makes Theomiles jealous and questions the reason he has sworn loyalty to her when a pretty shrimp princess is standing in front of him. At the same time, Kiriha arrives and asks Theomiles the reason behind her attacking the flying dolls. Theomiles tries to attack Innocent by letting Kiriha know that the only thing she attacked was unidentified objects flying over the school. Apparently, the dolls end up winning the battle but are in no shape to continue their work. Finally, the day of the marathon arrives and all the contestants are gathered at the starting line. Finally, the race starts and Kiriha manages to take the lead while all the other students behind her keep falling, creating a hurdle for everyone behind them. Theomiles realizes that Kiriha must have bought those men off, and she manages to cut her way through thanks to her trusty delinquent. Meanwhile, Kaoru notches up his riz and crosses the mountain of students after picking Harumi in his arms. The first task they come across is a difficult math problem, and Kaoru, being the brain-dead one, struggles while Harumi takes the lead after answering her question. After answering the question, he catches up with Theomiles and the 2 of them reach the eating contest. Kaoru starts eating like a pig and gets mocked by Theomiles for doing so. Apparently, Harumi is still busy eating as she is a slow eater and asks Kaoru to take the lead. However, he gets stuck at kanji reading and Kenji runs past him along with Shizuka. On the other hand, Harumi is also making her way forward and comes across Yurika, who seems to have given up. Harumi tries to motivate her by letting Yurika know that she will only be disappointed in herself if she quits. Harumi gives Yurika a hand, asking her to keep running along with her. Meanwhile, Kiriha is in first place and has reached the last obstacle, which is to cross a plank. Karama suggests picking the wider one as it is easier to cross. Afterward, Theomiles and Kaoru also reach the 8th obstacle, and Kaoru chooses the one that is most difficult to cross. Theomiles' delinquent also arrives and helps her with crossing the obstacle. Turns out that everyone's plank is filled with difficult obstacles except for the one Theomiles chose. Suddenly, some of the students step on a mine, which explodes. This shocks everyone except for Theomiles, who is the one who set up the mines in the first place. Unfortunately, the other contestants figure out that Theomiles' plank is the easiest one, and they all decide to take that route, pushing Theomiles off the plank. While everyone is struggling to stay alive, Harumi and Yurika are slowly running towards the finish line, and Harumi informs Yurika that she is only determined to finish the marathon to help out a friend of hers. Sadly, her health problems catch up to her and Harumi ends up fainting. Yurika transforms into a magic girl and starts healing Harumi with magic. Thankfully, both of them end up getting healed and all the stamina has been recovered. Kaoru is the one who is about to finish the race and seems to be really exhausted. He almost reaches the finish line but falls down due to exhaustion before finishing the race, allowing Kiriha and Theomiles to move past him. The final obstacle is to finish the race with the thing written on the paper they draw. Both Kiriha and Theomiles get the task of acquiring plot sizes smaller or bigger than theirs, resulting in a Wild West showdown between the two. Yurika and Harumi also reach the final task, and Yurika gives up after drawing the paper with the task to bring a friend. However, Harumi claims to her friend, making her overjoyed. In the end, both Harumi and Yurika along with Kaoru finish the race. In the end, Kaoru, Yurika, and Sani are the ones who won the race. After the race, Shizuka, who is enraged about the land mines, arrives and runs after Theomiles for setting them up. After shopping, Ruth spins a lucky wheel and ends up winning a trip to a hot spring resort. After returning home, she informs Theomiles about it and tells how the voucher allows her to take 6 people along. However, Theomiles is not really sure about bringing all her pets along. Eventually, she decides to let Ruth make the decision and she invites everyone to come along. Yurika wishes to tag along but is caught by surprise when Sani mentions that only 6 people are allowed and the total will be 7 if she comes along. This makes her feel rejected, but Kiriha mentions that Sani is a ghost and only they are able to see her, making it easier to let her tag along without using the voucher. With that being said, everyone is ready to visit the hot spring and decides to call a truce until the trip ends. The same day, everyone visits the swimsuit store to buy some new swimsuits for the trip. Theomiles manages to find the one she likes, but the size seems to be a little too big for a washboard like her. While the other girls are shopping, Kaoru asks Sani if she isn't getting anything for herself, to which Sani replies that she already has a swimsuit to wear. Kaoru mentions that he will be looking forward to seeing it, making Sani happy. Finally, it is time for the trip and all of them travel to the hot spring on Theomiles' spaceship. Ruth prepares the gate that will take them directly to the inn. It was Theomili's idea to use the spaceship as it would save them some money. Kaoru is impressed after hearing about it and praises Theomilis, but his praise soon turns into him insulting Theomilis for being a shrimp. Afterward, they all arrive at the inn and are impressed to see how old and nasty it looks, far from everything the voucher told them. The room they will be staying in is even more cramped than Kaoru's 5,000 yen room. Ruth apologizes for all the trouble, but Kaoru and Theomilis reassure her that none of this is her fault. After taking a look, Sani informs everyone that there might be ghosts lurking around the inn. Luckily, Shizuka came prepared and showed everyone the stuff she brought for their safety. Kaoru accidentally pointed the sword at Sani, resulting in a fight between them. She tries to attack Kaoru, but he reminds her of the charms he possesses. After settling in, they all head to the nearby beach and Kaoru notices the cosplay society present there as well. Apparently, they are doing a club meetup nearby and they let Kaoru know that Harumi is present at the beach as well. This makes the simp even more excited for this trip, and before the cosplay society leaves, he asks them to take care of Yurika. After Kaoru sets up the umbrella, he notices all the girls arriving after changing into their swimsuits. They all showcase their swimsuits one by one, but Kaoru is too busy talking with Harumi, who just arrived as well. Seeing this makes all the girls jealous and they decide to punish him. Later, all the girls are enjoying playing volleyball in the ocean after burying Kaoru in the sand. He asks Harumi for help, but she refuses and starts teasing him instead. The ball game ends when Sani strikes the ball in Yurika's face and they decide to let Kaoru out of the sand. Just when they are about to free him, the girls notice him enjoying his time with Harumi once again, making them want to punish Kaoru even harder. With that being said, they put a watermelon next to his face and played a game called Smash the Watermelon. The one playing is blindfolded and the other girls purposefully guide her to strike Kaoru's ugly face instead of the watermelon. During the game, Kaoru notices two weirdos running at them and they suddenly catch Theomilis using a net. Their actions result in Kiriya and Shizuka getting enraged and they end up burying them in sand as well. Later, everyone enjoys their time at the hot spring and Kaoru thinks that it was a great day, considering his meetup with Harumi. On the other hand, Theomilis tells everyone her reason for wanting to own the apartment room, informing them that she wants to uphold the honor of her mother. Sani is in a similar situation and wants to wait for her mom and dad in that room. Surprisingly, Yurika has a valid reason as well and needs that apartment because she owes someone her life. Apparently, that person saved her life and got injured instead. The only reason she is acting as a magical girl is solely for that person. Meanwhile, Kiriya wants the Earth's people to prosper once more. At night, everyone is sleeping peacefully when Kaoru rolls onto Ruth in his sleep. He starts cooking, making Ruth embarrassed. However, all her embarrassment washes away when she realizes that Kaoru is dreaming about a beetle and is thinking of her as a tree where the beetle is resting. This pisses her off and she wakes him up, resulting in him apologizing to the girls afterward. He tells everyone about the dream he was having, and the thought of a beetle being more important than Ruth makes her furious and he is kicked out of the room. While roaming around on the beach, he comes across Kiriya, who is sitting on her own. She tells Kaoru about the person she likes but hasn't seen in a while. Sani catches them and plans to pull a prank. However, the charm accidentally ends up hitting and hurting Sani. She asks him the reason he carries those charms and comes to the conclusion that he maybe doesn't want her to stay any longer. The next day, Sani is still not talking to him even though Kaoru has already apologized. Soon after, the two of them start fighting once again, and in the end, Sani lets Kaoru know that the two of them are enemies. Kaoru agrees and she leaves the inn, crying. Later that day, Sani is sitting on her own and thinking about the things she said to Kaoru. The two weirdos are stalking her from behind and find the perfect opportunity to capture her. Kaoru also goes out to look for Sani and runs into Harumi. On the other hand, Yurika is also looking for Sani when she hears her voice and notices the weirdos kidnapping her with the help of another wandering spirit they employ. The two of them introduce themselves as ghost hunters and inform Sani that they capture and sell off ghosts. Yurika watches her getting attacked from afar and is scared to go out and fight those creepy things. However, she then reminds herself that a magical girl should stand for things that are right and transform herself into a magical girl. Unfortunately, the cosplay society catches her wearing the magical girl dress and takes her away. Meanwhile, Kaoru tells everything that happened to Harumi and how he can't figure out the reason she is acting like that. Harumi replies and tells Kaoru that she is aware of how Sani feels. Sani is being taken to another location and tries to create a fuss, but the ghost that captured her tells Sani to shut up and wait, as she might find herself an owner who will give her a cozy place to call home. However, Sani replies that she already has a nice place. The ghost lets Sani know that she is most likely being a nuisance to those who live there. The reason humans sell charms is so they can get rid of them. The ghost suggests Sani accept the truth, making Sani question her feelings. On the other hand, Harumi asks Kaoru about how he might feel if she informs everyone that she and him are strangers who just happen to be in the same club. He replies that something like that must hurt, reminding him that he did the same thing to Sani as well. Kaoru thanks Harumi for the advice and goes to look for her again, just to come across Yurika getting kidnapped by the cosplay society. She finally tells Kaoru about everything that happened to Sani, and he leaves in a hurry without saving her from cosplay society. After returning to the inn, he informs the other girls about what happened to Sani and gathers all the weapons he can take to rescue Sani. In order to find the location she is taken to, Shizuka takes out her vintage ghost locator, but it ends up exploding right in the loser's face as soon as they start. Afterward, Kiria decides to make sure of her dolls and manages to find her location. They all decide to help Sani out, and with that being said, they all head out. Meanwhile, Sani is locked inside a glass tube and the ghost girl lets her know that no one will be coming to rescue her. She tells Sani that Kaoru must have betrayed her as she herself went through a similar experience. Suddenly, the alarms go off and the ghost hunters notice that Kaoru and the others have infiltrated their hideout. They take care of all the guards who are present at the entrance, and at the same time, Yurika manages to escape and is on her way to save Sani as well. After Kaoru enters the room, Sani starts mocking him for coming to her rescue as she didn't ask for his help. This pisses him off, and just when he is about to reply, the cultured ghost hunters arrive and block his way. They threaten to hand them over to the police, but the ghost hunters let the girls know that there are no such laws for ghosts. Both Kiria and Theomiles use their powers to attack the ghost girl and the two weirdos. Seeing them fight makes Sani believe, and she puts her trust in them. Seeing how the new girl betrays her as well makes the ghost lose her mind, and she releases her true power. All her lackey spirits form a single big spirit which is powerful enough to give the girls a tough time. Just when the ghost is about to absorb Sani into itself, Kaoru arrives and attacks its hand, resulting in Kaoru flying away and crashing into a wall. The ghost attacks the other girls as well and goes on to devour Sani. Kaoru decides to not give up and runs at the ghost, carrying his charms. He attacks the ghost, and at the same time, Yurika buffs the attack power using her spells, making it even more effective. The ghost tells Kaoru that he shouldn't be attacking with Riz as it might even hurt Sani's body which is inside her. However, Kaoru replies that his charm will not hurt Sani. He then throws the charm at the ghost and manages to defeat it, saving Sani, who is unscratched by it. He handles the charm without getting hurt, only to realize that the charm he threw is specifically made to protect one's family. This makes Sani realize that Kaoru thinks of her as a family even though they are enemies, ultimately making her cry. The other girls start confronting Kaoru for making Sani cry, but she clears up the misunderstanding and thanks Kaoru for everything he did. After returning back, Kaoru tells Harumi that he managed to make up with the friend he previously mentioned and thanks her for the advice. Surprisingly, this event has made Sani become even closer to Kaoru, and she annoys and tags along wherever he goes. Back at the spaceship, Ruth brings Theomiles some tea and notices that she is reading the same book she always is. Theomiles informs Ruth that it is a gift from her mother and means the world to her. The book she is obsessed with is called The Legend of the Silver Princess and the Blue Knight. Back in the shabby room, Kaoru asks the girls to write a script for the theater club as his best friend Kenji is in dire need of a script. Apparently, Kenji made fun of Kaoru earlier and he now wants to prove himself. The deadline is at the end of the month and Kaoru decides to compensate for the time the girls will put in. He will be giving 5 points to the person who helps with the script and will give 20 points to the person whose script ends up getting selected. Kiriha mentions that it is quite a generous offer from Kaoru, as even if none of them get picked, he still loses 20 points and loses 40 points if someone is picked. After hearing the explanation, Yurika decides to help him out as being at the same place. She has nothing to lose anyway. Additionally, Theomiles and Sani along with Kiriha also plan to assist him and steal those points from him. Later, everyone starts working on their scripts except for Theomiles, who is playing games as she already has planned the type of script she will be writing. Soon after, Yurika arrives and tells Kaoru that the vice president of their club is moving houses and has asked Yurika to take care of her pet until she settles in. She then shows them the pet, which is supposedly a giant beetle. Seeing the beetle reminds Theomiles of how Ruth started to hate beetles after that day at the hot spring resort. She tells Kaoru that it is necessary to hide this information from Ruth as she will be furious if she happens to see the beetle. While Yurika tells Kaoru how the beetle might need to stay for a few months, Ruth returns. Theomiles and Kaoru take the beetle to the closet, barely hiding it from Ruth. At night, Sani helps Kaoru write a story and tells about how she would like to write something non-fiction. Apparently, her parents had eloped and she wants to tell everyone the real story about her parents in the form of a play. Suddenly, the closet door opens and Yurika asks for Kaoru's help, letting him know that the beetle is not letting her sleep in peace because of how it keeps on moving around. Kaoru allows her to stay in the room instead of the closet until the vice president takes it back. On the other hand, Theomiles is also busy writing the script, and when asked if she is tired, Theomiles replies that she needs to produce something in line with the planet's intellectual level. Suddenly, the alarm of her ship starts going off and Ruth informs Theomiles that a space-time quake has been detected nearby. Finally, 1 month has passed and it is time to test everyone's script. In the end, Theomiles ends up winning and Kaoru can't swallow the fact that shrimp like her managed to outdo him. After winning the competition, Theomiles laughs at all the losers for trying to console themselves. The preparations for the cultural festival have started and Ruth informs Kaoru about the storyline that Theomiles went with and how the theater show will play out. In the end, she asks Kaoru to give Theomiles his full support as she has worked really hard and he agrees to do so. While picking the roles for the play, Theomiles doesn't like the girls gathered for the audition and wants someone who looks more fragile. Eureka asks to become the princess instead, but Theomiles completely ignores her and continues to rant about how there isn't a girl good enough for the role. Luckily, Kaoru knows a girl who will be a perfect fit for the job. At the same time, he requests Theomiles to give Eureka a better role than that of a horse. She ends up getting the role of a bandit instead and is happy with the slight improvement. Soon after, Harumi visits the room and Kaoru informs everyone that she is the person he is talking about. Afterward, the two of them go to the rooftop and Harumi practices her lines with Kaoru, who is temporarily acting as the Blue Knight. After their practice ends, the club president praises their talent and informs Harumi that she is indeed the perfect person for the role. 1 week left before the cultural festival, Kaoru is walking around the school and notices Theomiles buried under a bunch of stuff. She asks Kaoru to help her out and informs him that she was trying to take the bag full of props back to the club room but couldn't handle the weight. Kaoru helps her out and tells Theomiles that he is glad to see her working this hard. This makes Theomiles happy, and she sees some similarities between Kaoru and the Blue Knight of her dreams. Later that day, Harumi tries to practice with Kenji but can't perform the same way she did with Kaoru. He intervenes and asks the club president to let him practice with Harumi until she gets used to the act. Surprisingly, this time their act is as cringe as ever and makes Theomiles think that she is seeing the real princess and Blue Knight converse. After practice, Kiriha gives everyone the idea of giving the role of Blue Knight to Kaoru instead of Kenji as Harumi is more comfortable playing it with Kaoru. Everyone agrees including Kenji and Kaoru ends up getting the lead role. Theomiles tells Kaoru that he resembles the Blue Knight more than anyone and decides to turn him into the perfect version of the Blue Knight before the play. While they are practicing, a girl stalks Theomiles, thinking of how she will make sure that her play doesn't get a happy ending. After training for a while with Theomiles, Kaoru still can't grasp the basics and keeps on getting yelled at by her for being an incompetent fool. She then tries to teach him the art of drawing a sword, but turns out Kaoru can't even do this much, prompting Theomiles to throw more insults at him. Afterward, they decide to take a short break and discuss how the original Blue Knight armor perfectly fits Kaoru. Ruth then informs Theomiles that a Fordorthan ship has appeared in the vicinity of Earth. Theomiles realizes that it is Shirley Clan, the second crown princess to the Fordorth Galactic Empire. With that being said, they continue their training after the short break. On the other hand, Eureka and Sani are watching over the beetle when suddenly Ruth appears. Both of them freak out but take a sigh of relief after finding out that Ruth has no idea that the insect is called a beetle. The next day, Kaoru continues training with Harumi and Theomiles comments on how he keeps on unsheathing it all wrong. Apparently, Kiriha is taking a role in the play as the person who was originally part of it got sick. Later, the club president wants to do a final rehearsal and while they are preparing for it, Kaoru notices an unknown girl walk past him, making him curious about who she might be. During the final rehearsal, Theomiles watched them act and noticed that the scene seemed very real to her, making her question the reason she wasn't the one acting as the princess. While watching them act, Kiriha realizes that Kaoru is saying the same words that the guy he likes said to him. Suddenly, lights fall on top of Theomiles and luckily, Kaoru manages to save her at the last second. Kiriha finds a hook on the floor and figures that it was not an accident but someone purposefully did it. Back at home, everyone thinks that it is Clan's doing. Ruth explains that Theomiles and Clan have been rivals and have always been in conflict. Theomiles then explains that Clan needs to figure out a way to hurt Theomiles in secrecy as if her actions are found out. Her right to become the queen can be taken away. The training for the play continues and finally, everything is complete and the club president lets everyone enjoy the party and take some rest for the performance the next day. Unfortunately, Kaoru is not allowed to participate in the party as Theomiles is forcing him to further perfect his acting for the play. Harumi watches the two of them practice and realizes that Kaoru never acts like this around her. Later, Eureka returns home and finds Ruth preparing dinner. Eureka starts feeding the beetle and Ruth, who is watching TV, finds out the true identity of the incest Eureka is feeding. This results in her running after Eureka, who is protecting the beetle with her life. On the other hand, Kaoru and Theomiles are still practicing when everyone starts dancing outside at the party. Kaoru offers to dance with her but he keeps on messing up and stepping on her foot. The other girls also visit the gymnasium to watch the two fights when Yurika comes running. She informs everyone about how Ruth is following her and Shizuka suggests hiding in the storeroom. Ruth eventually arrives and seeing the princess dance with Kaoru brings Ruth back to her normal self. Unexpectedly, Kurama and Kurama inform Kiriha that a spatial distortion is detected within the gym. Not long after, Clan reveals herself and pulls out a weapon, making Ruth figure out that she has used material that Fort Worth won't be able to track. Meanwhile, Kaoru quietly thinks things through and tries to find Clan's true motives. Theomilis gets furious and tries to use her powers. Kaoru figures something out and tries to stop Theomilis, but he is a little too late and her equipment explodes. Luckily, Kaoru does manage to save her from severe injuries. Kiriha informs everyone that the nerdy princess has laid a trap that triggers an explosion upon Theomilis' weapon materialization. Afterward, Kaoru asks the dolls and Sani to protect Theomilis while he runs off to fight Clan. She puts up a shield in front of her, but it starts breaking because of Kaoru's sword. This surprises Clan as a replica sword should not have the same powers as the real Signal-Tin sword. Clan tries to fire her weapon at Kaoru, but Sani rushes in and does a tulip on Clan as well, exposing her kitty plot. This gives Kaoru a chance to slash her weapon in 2 pieces. Clan gets even more furious and starts using her original powers to bring Kaoru back to her ship. Just then, the dolls bring the gadget Clan used to make Theomilis' weapons explode and use it on Clan. An explosion occurs and she manages to run away. Theomilis decides not to chase her and forgives Kaoru for breaking the sword that she gave him. Clan manages to hide in the storeroom and tries to use her powers once again, but Yurika, who is already hiding there, falls on top of Clan, making her lose consciousness. The next day, Kaoru is sleeping in his room after the cultural festival is complete and both Theomilis and Ruth pay him a visit. She rewards him for saving her life by bestowing the honor of kinghood. She makes him her own personal Blue Knight while he sleeps peacefully, with care in the world. At school, Yurika tries to convince the cosplay society that she really is a magical girl and isn't someone who likes cosplaying, but as usual, no one believes a word she says. After the club members leave, Kaoru reassures Yurika that she is an excellent cosplayer, making her even more annoyed. Later in class, the class teacher introduces a new student and Yurika remembers who she is right away. She runs at Maki, the new student, and gives her a hug. Yurika then tells Kaoru that Maki is one of the magical girls who wants to steal his room. After class, Sani praises Yurika for having a friend who goes along with her cosplay story. Sani still can't seem to believe in a word she says, but Kaoru advises Yurika to ignore all the naysayers. Among all the ghosts, earth people, and aliens he has to deal with, her odd hobby is one thing that makes her a normal breath of fresh air. After Kaoru and Sani leave, Maki pays Yurika a visit and confronts her for believing that she possesses enough power to fight Maki. She further tells Yurika that she is the only obstacle in her way as the wound that her friend, Nana, gave her has already healed. She further confronts Yurika for joining a cosplay club to hide her identity. Yurika tries to decline, but Maki doesn't listen to a word she says and decides to join the cosplay society as well. Later, Harumi visits Yurika and tells her that she wants to get closer to Kaoru. Not in a normal way, but much closer to him. Apparently, she wants the same treatment that he gives to Theomilis or Yurika. However, she tells Harumi that Kaoru is a jerk who likes hitting girls on their heads. But she soon remembers all the times when Kaoru had been nice to her, eventually making her agree to help Harumi. To start things off, she lends Harumi a love novel and asks her to go on a date with Kaoru. Hearing the word date makes Harumi flustered. After returning home, Yurika finds that all the girls and Kaoru are throwing Maki a party for joining their class. Yurika tells everyone to kick her out as she can gather all the data required to steal this room from them. Seeing the serious expression on her face makes Kaoru listen to her reasoning, but they get interrupted when Kenji arrives and takes Kaoru back to the party room. Coincidentally, he brought some snacks that start with the name of rhinoceros, and this reminds Ruth of the rhinoceros beetle, making her pissed once again. While Kaoru is trying to hold Ruth off, Sani and Theomilis tell Yurika to hold off the accusation and let Maki enjoy the party. This makes Yurika run away crying as no one seems to believe her. On the other hand, Harumi is thinking about going on a date with Kaoru when she notices Yurika sitting on her own. She tells Harumi about how none of her friends seem to believe her. After hearing everything, Harumi advises her to stay persistent until her words get through to them. Yurika understands the advice Harumi gave her and returns home. The next morning, she refuses to go to school with Kaoru and Kiriha and plans to come on her own later. To stay on the safe side, Kiriha leaves Kurama and Kurama at home to keep an eye on Yurika. After they leave, Yurika wears her revealing childish cosplay and heads out. At school, Ruth informs everyone that the school is planning to do another play next year and wants them to make a sequel to their Blue Knight show. Afterward, Kurama informs Kiriha that Yurika ran off somewhere in her cosplay. After Kurama is done tracking her location, Kaoru decides to follow her instead of letting someone else do it. Meanwhile, Yurika is finally having a face-off with Mika in an under-construction building. Before the battle starts, they both deploy a magic spell that keeps other people from entering the area. With that being done, the battle starts and Kaoru also manages to find the place where the two of them are fighting. He manages to enter the barrier, unlike Sani. He then grabs her hand, which allows her to enter the barrier as well. During their battle, Maki lands a punch on Yurika, making her crash into the wall. Simultaneously, Kaoru and Sani arrive, and seeing them enter the barrier makes Maki surprised. Kaoru asks Yurika to go home as she shouldn't be fighting such battles. Maki concludes that Kaoru is a mage who has helped Yurika attain the power she possesses, and she starts thinking of Kaoru as her enemy. Maki makes up her mind to take care of Yurika first and finish Kaoru off later. She then attacks Yurika and runs to land a kick, but Kaoru manages to save her in the nick of time. Maki then brings out Harumi, whom she has taken as a hostage. She has cast a spell on her body that makes Harumi lose all control of her body. Maki then rains down stones at them, but Yurika defends Kaoru by putting up a shield. After witnessing everything, Kaoru finally believes Yurika is a magic girl and decides to save Harumi together with her. However, they were never her target and she attacks Harumi instead. Luckily, Yurika comes in front of Harumi at the last second and tanks the attacks, saving Harumi from getting hit. After tanking the attack, Yurika loses consciousness and doesn't wake up even after Kaoru continuously calls out her name. Kaoru then gets back up and promises to not let Maki lay a hand on Yurika from now on. Suddenly, Harumi's hair turns white and a symbol appears on her forehead. She uses her powers to create a sword and hands it over to Kaoru. He gladly takes it without asking any questions and is now ready to take on Maki. She starts off by firing electric attacks at him, but he easily deals with them and starts gaining the upper hand. Maki then decides to retreat and decides to take the power residing in his room, as it will be required to defeat someone like him. Harumi also gains consciousness and Kaoru reassures her that Yurika is perfectly fine and is only unconscious. Harumi then tells Kaoru about how the last thing she remembers is Yurika getting hit by the attack and doesn't remember what happened after that. Soon after, Yurika also gains consciousness. On the other hand, the rest of the girls are waiting for them at school and talk about how the two of them still haven't returned. Theamilis seems to be worried and Kurama offers to go and find them for her. This makes Theamilis embarrassed and she walks away, claiming that she couldn't care less about some 5,000 yen room owner. She then continues to work on the sequel of Blue Knight and wants to make Princess and Blue Knight fall in love with each other. However, she starts thinking of herself as the princess and the thought of her kissing Kaoru makes her fluster. Meanwhile, after hearing about what happened, Yurika suggests following Maki as she is certain that Maki is headed over to Kaoru's room. Nonetheless, Kaoru advises Yurika to wait for a while and recover his strength, as they will not gain anything from rushing into a battle just to lose in the end. On the other hand, Maki is already present in the room and trying to decode the magic that created Kaoru's sword, wanting to seize control of it. While they are waiting for Yurika's strength to recover, she tells Kaoru and Harumi her story. Yurika always had a talent for magic and was once attacked by a beast who sensed her potential. The magical girl who came to her rescue was none other than Nana. Yurika wanted to repay Nana for saving her life and started helping her out with everything she could. Apparently, Nana was an archwitch for Rainbow Heart, the kingdom's Forsarian army. Furthermore, Yurika informs them that it is her fault that Nana ended up losing her magic powers. The organization Maki belongs to took Yurika hostage 8 months ago, and Nana was critically injured while trying to protect her and eventually released all her magic to defeat Maki and the others. This is the reason Yurika decided to take her place and use the costume and staff Nana once used. After the rain stops, Kaoru gives Yurika a piggyback home, and on their way back, he tells Yurika that she was a normal girl for him among all the weirdos that invaded his house a few months ago. This is one of the reasons he didn't want to believe the magical girl stuff and wanted Yurika to be a normal classmate of his. Finally, Maki succeeds in gaining control of the magic that lies in Kaoru's room and is confident that she can now defeat him. At that exact moment, Kaoru and Yurika enter the room and their fight begins. Kaoru gives her a tough time thanks to the buff that Yurika gave him. Soon after, Yurika also joins the battle and defends Kaoru from the attacks that Maki is throwing at him. She then uses another kind of magic and Yurika warns Kaoru to not let the staff hit him, as it will seal his memories for a few seconds. The battle continues and Kaoru finds an opportunity to land a kick on Maki but falls in her trap, and she uses the room's magic on Kaoru. Maki then attacks Kaoru with a gigantic blade, but Yurika manages to put forward a shield but ends up losing her consciousness after not being able to completely defend herself. Now that Kaoru has no way of defending himself, Maki creates another blade but is stopped in her tracks when Kiriya joins the battle. Kurama create a shield that manages to deflect her attack. The rest of the girls also arrive, and this time, Theamilis walks forward to take Maki on. She orders Blue Knight to rain down laser attacks on Maki. Even though Maki manages to defend herself from all those attacks, it does make a hole in her barrier. Theomiles then tries to use the main weapon because she is pissed at Maki for trying to hurt Kaoru. However, she is interrupted when Shizuka questions the person responsible for ruining her house. Upon finding out that it is Maki, she lunges at her and lands the landlord an uppercut, which results in the complete defeat of Maki. She then uses another spell and disappears, and surprisingly, this spell makes everyone forget what just happened, making them go back to not believing Yurika for being a magical girl. Back at the Darkness Heart hideout, Maki informs the other members that Yurika has now gathered her own team and Kaoru is the person whom they need to worry about the most. The next day, Harumi finally goes on a date with Kaoru, and Yurika along with Kenji also comes to not let Harumi feel awkward or embarrassed. After the date, Kaoru asks Yurika the reason she seems down, to which she explains that the people who finally started believing her forgot everything once again. Kaoru then tells Yurika that he doesn't care whether she is a cosplayer or a magical girl. He surprisingly remembers bits and pieces of her saving Harumi and lets her know that not everyone saves others, whether they are magical girls or cosplayers. Hearing this statement makes her cry, and she accepts being a normal classmate and a freeloader at Kaoru's apartment. The whole Earth protection team is present in their hideout when the professors inform them of the incoming attack from the Earth people and order them to protect the surface people. A few days ago, Kiriha asked everyone to lend her a hand in the upcoming kids show. Apparently, they are a locally grown superhero team, and the neighborhood association's youth organization asked for her help as they were running the show. She accepted the requests and asked them to act on the show, which is supposed to happen in 3 days. She further tells them that all they need to do is to entertain the children and not nail a performance. Theomiles is the first one to accept the proposal, as she is excited to use this opportunity and train Kaoru even further. Kiriha further tells Kaoru that Harumi will be taking part in this as well, which raises his level of motivation. Finally, the time of the show arrives, and Kaoru along with Kiriha and Theomiles acts as the villains of the show. The kids start mocking Theomiles for being a shrimp who will never be able to defeat their heroes. She gets furious and starts yelling at the kids, but Sani stops her and asks Theomiles to focus on her lines. Kaoru then steps down from the stage and forcefully abducts Harumi, playing the role of a villain in a perfect way. He announces that the cute girl will be his from now on and calls for his horse. Apparently, Yurika is the one acting as the horse, and she arrives on the stage, ready to take them to the wedding venue. Harumi embarrassingly tells Kaoru that she is still not ready for marriage. This makes the kid question why the girl looks this happy to marry a villain, to which her friend explains that girls like bad boys more than the good ones. Now it is time for the hero to arrive, but the person playing the person doesn't arrive. Just then, a bunch of people in pathetic costumes who call themselves Red Shine arrive. Everyone is confused as no one has seen these guys before. Kaoru gets pissed off and starts confronting them for their sudden arrival. He forces them off the stage and yells at them for dressing up like creeps. Just then, the real heroes of the show arrive, while the Red Shine team realizes that the professor gave them the wrong call, as it was not the Earth people attack but a normal kids show. After the show is complete, Kiriha drops one of the kids back to her father, asking Kaoru to take care of the rest. On the other hand, Shizuka and the person playing the hero apologize for their late arrival as the hero's costume accidentally ripped. They all then try to discuss the true identities of Red Shine, and no one seems to know who those people might be. On their way back home, everyone notices Kiriha working with others to clean the neighborhood. Sani thinks that Kiriha might be taking her first step towards the invasion, as everyone who seems to be helping her are Earth people. At night, Kiriha is present in her home when the chief calls her and asks for an update. Apparently, the chief is her father, and she lets him know that Plana is working smoothly and their people are helping the neighborhood association, whose members have welcomed them with open arms. Meanwhile, Plan B is to take over Kaoru's room, but many other factions are also fighting over it and are becoming a hindrance. The chief tells Kiriha that if Plana is to fail somehow, they will need to switch over to Plan B and obtain Kaoru's room by force. The chief then asks Kiriha to return back home and marry someone, as it will strengthen the loyalty of their supporters. However, Kiriha refuses and informs her dad that she can't do this, at least for now. The next day, Harumi is happy after thinking about Kaoru calling her cute during the show. Suddenly, Kaoru arrives and asks her the reason behind her happiness. She manages to change the topic and tells Kaoru that she is glad to help the neighborhood and feels like she has become a part of town. On their way home, Kaoru runs into Kiriha, who is buying groceries for their house. He decides to help her out and notices that everyone in the neighborhood seems to know her and shows their gratitude to Kiriha for all that she has done for them. After they are done with shopping, the two of them rest for a bit. Kaoru asks Kiriha if she doesn't want to invade the surface, but rather become a part of it. Kiriha tells Kaoru that she might have done everything to gain his trust. But Kaoru replies that she was not in the least friendly with him at the start and she wouldn't be like that if her goal was to gain his trust. Kiriha then asks Kaoru to clear his schedule as she wants to visit somewhere with him. Finally, the weekend arrives and Kiriha helps him dress up for their little date. After getting ready, the two of them leave while all the girls look at them in surprise. Afterward, Ruth puts forward the possibility that the two of them went on a date, shocking everyone along with Yurika, who is angry at him for not choosing Harumi. Ruth then starts to track their location and everyone decides to stalk the two of them and find out if Kiriha has started to hypnotize the thirsty boy using her talents. Kiriha and Kaoru finally arrive at the amusement park and Kiriha mentions that she visited the same park 10 years ago. At the same time, all the other girls have also arrived at the amusement park and are commenting on how Kaoru is an untrustworthy man. The two of them start off with riding the spinning teacup and all Kaoru can focus on is the dolls riding the teacup next to them. Afterward, they both try multiple rides and eventually go to watch a movie. Yurika is concerned that Kaoru might take advantage of the darkness and mess around with the hot girl. But Theomiles has prepared a surveillance drone for situations like this. The girls then notice that Ruth is not present with them and realize the giant rhinoceros beetle advertisement right in front of them. Apparently, the TV show with Rhinoceros Man is taking place and Ruth arrives at the stage and starts fighting the other heroes after already taking care of one of them. Coincidentally, Shizuka is one of the superheroes and decides to fight Ruth or she might just have to say goodbye to her paycheck. After the movie ends, they both receive a card that looks similar to the one Kiriha holds onto. She got it 10 years ago as well when she visited this place with the person she loves. Afterward, the two of them ride the Ferris wheel and Kiriha hops inside the same way she did 10 years ago. During their Ferris wheel ride, Kiriha explains that she had a fight with her father 10 years ago and ran away from home. She came to the surface and met the person she then fell in love with. All she remembers is that the person was a teenager and she called him Oni-chan. This is exactly the reason she volunteered to command the invasion of the surface, as this might give her a chance to meet her first love once again. She wants to peacefully settle things instead of turning the town where she met him into a war zone. Additionally, the reason she took things slow and didn't forcefully take the room from Kaoru is because she wanted him to resist. If she were to have taken the room for herself, the revolutionists of Earth people would have taken it as an invitation to invade the surface forcefully. Kaoru then tells Kiriha that he would have done everything to help her out if she had explained her circumstances earlier. Kaoru then takes advantage of the romantic atmosphere and hits on Kiriha, letting her know that no man can resist falling for her. She laughs at him and lets Kaoru know that compliments like this will make any girl's day. On the other hand, the girls find Ruth unconscious on a bench and after waking up, Ruth tells everyone that she has already forgotten what happened. Before leaving, Kaoru and Kiriha are about to ride the roller coaster when suddenly, the ground starts shaking. Suddenly, a submarine emerges from the ground and Kiriha recognizes it as a submarine of Earth people. A person named Tayuma comes out of the submarine and lets Kiriha know that he is here to invade the land and save the Earth's people from Kiriha's cringe leadership. Meanwhile, the girls also find out about them and head over to help the two of them out. Yurika also transforms into Magical Girl and puts up a spell to protect the people present in the park. Tayuma's men raise their guns at Kiriha and he tells her that he can easily blame her demise on the surface people. With that being said, they open fire but the dolls arrive at the perfect time and after shielding Kiriha, they attack Tayuma's men. Surprisingly, he has an ace up his sleeve and brings up a giant robot to fight Kiriha's dolls. Kurama and Kurama seem to be having a hard time defending themselves from the robot's attack. Tayuma tells Kiriha that he is aware of her obsession with the roller coaster and plans to completely crush it and have it serve as her tombstone. Just when he is about to order the robot, Kaoru steps in and punches his ugly old face. However, his cool act ends when Tayuma's men hit him from the back and kick him off the submarine. Kaoru is barely holding on to the edge of the submarine and the robot fires up to attack Kaoru. Luckily, Theomiles arrives at the perfect time and attacks the robot, canceling its attack. Kaoru eventually loses his grip and starts falling down, but Ruth managed to save him using her powers. Sani and Shizuka also join the fight. Luckily, Theomiles brought Kaoru's sword along and gave it to him. With that being said, the whole gang is present and is ready to take the invaders on. The robot then releases multiple smaller robots and all of them start taking care of the smaller robots while Theomiles fights the big one. Her attacks defeat the robot and make it fall on the ground, but fortunately, Kiriha arrives and lands a punch, stopping it from destroying the park. Tayuma then uses a smoke bomb, but Sani possesses Kaoru and gives him a vision that allows him to find Tayuma's location even with the smoke. Even after Tayuma is defeated, he doesn't give up and plans to blow the robot along with the whole amusement park. Kiriha orders the dolls to put up a shield of maximum power and Yurika also helps them out, allowing them to contain the explosion. The loser of a man then takes out a gun, but Kiriha attacks him before he is able to make a move. After the victory, Kiriha informs Kaoru that the government will be able to cover up the mess as they are aware of Earth people, but keeps it private from the locals. Before leaving the park, Kaoru tells Kiriha that the two of them are friends and Kiriha refuses, letting him know that they are not only friends but best friends. It's morning. Ruth and Kiriha are preparing breakfast while Theomiles tries to wake up and can't seem to get used to seeing Sandy's weird sleeping position. Afterward, she tries to wake Yurika up, but she doesn't even budge. Theomiles tries to mess around a little bit and starts to tickle her, but it has no effect on her either. Kurama and Kurama arrive and start jumping on Yurika, which results in Kaoru waking up. It has been 3 seasons since the girls invaded his room. At school, Ruth asks Kiriha about Christmas as she is unaware of such a celebration, and the conversations about it are making her curious. Yurika arrives and tells them that Christmas is when people get to eat chicken and cake, but Sandy disagrees and tells them that Santa brings presents for kids. Theomiles doesn't really agree with the gift thing as it seems really dangerous to accept something from a stranger. Shizuka joins the conversation and informs them that Christmas is when couples get all lovey-dovey with each other. Yurika adds that one can spend the day with friends and family as well. Sandy suggests throwing a party, but Theomiles disagrees as she wants to practice for the upcoming play. Later, Harumi is on her way back home when she notices Kaoru dressed up as a Santa, handing out flyers to people. She steals his hat and wears it herself, which prompts Kaoru to call her cute. He then tells Harumi that there is something he might need her help for. Back at home, the girls can't believe that Kaoru has started working another job even though he has a lot of practice to do for the upcoming play. Apparently, he hasn't even told Kenji the reason behind his job, which makes him think that Kaoru might be saving up money to enjoy going on a date. Hearing this statement makes Ruth furious as she can't believe Kaoru is planning to go on a date and ditch practice. At the same time, Kaoru arrives home and is confronted by Ruth for taking a part-time job. He then explains that it is only a 3-day part-time job and there is no special reason behind him taking the job. The girls don't buy it and keep on asking about it, and Kaoru makes an excuse of wanting the money for the new year. Seeing how the girls still don't believe, Kiriha helps him out by letting everyone know that the two of them are dating. This statement ends up shocking Ruth and Yurika, but Theomiles and Sandy see through their act, stating that the two of them are obviously lying. This diverts the attention of everyone and they start focusing on the food on the table. Kaoru thanks Kiriha for the help and everyone then starts enjoying the food. The next day, Kaoru brings a Christmas tree for the club room and tells Harumi that he managed to purchase it from her part-time job money. Harumi also brought some decorations and can't wait to see the smiles on everyone's faces. Finally, it is Christmas Eve and after school ends, Kaoru asks for Kenji's help and tells him to bring everyone to the club room. Afterward, Kaoru returns after buying stuff for the party when Harumi comes running and lets him know that they ran into trouble. Apparently, some students already took permission to use their club room for their party and they have no other choice but to find another place. Harumi gives him the idea of using his room and he runs home, thinking about why he didn't use it from the get-go. Furthermore, he thinks of all the girls starting with Sandy and how she is like a little sister. Theomiles has changed for the better as well and he won't mind serving her as a vassal. Ruth is the epitome of dedication and he is happy to have her in his life. Even though Yurika was a little unreliable at the start, she was still dedicated enough to take a hit for any of them. At last, Kaoru feels like he can talk about anything with Kiriha and thinks of her as a best friend. With that being said, he finally arrives home, just to find out that all the girls have already planned a party for him. They wish him a happy Christmas and talk about how their plan went better than expected. Additionally, Kenji arrives and informs Kaoru that he is a part of their plan as well. He wanted to help him out but couldn't let the girls down as he is a cultured guy at heart. Furthermore, Shizuka and Harumi are also a part of the plan and this breaks Kaoru down, making him feel like all his plans and preparations were for nothing. However, the girls tell him to not get mad as they brought the tree he purchased along with the cake he wanted to bring for the party. Later, everyone enjoys the party and Kaoru comments on how the girls really got him good. Sandy then asks Kaoru to eat some chicken and he agrees, letting her taste it as well. After the party ends, Kaoru walks Harumi back to the station and jokes about how he won't forgive her for the betrayal. He then puts on the Santa hat and gives her a gift she made himself. Surprisingly, he was able to knit a muffler all by himself, and even though it is not perfect, he asks Harumi to accept it. Suddenly, Harumi's hair turns white as well and she starts acting like a princess while Kaoru acts as the Blue Knight. She gives him a sword as a present which he graciously accepts. Back at their house, the girls think about how Kaoru still hasn't remembered the truth about them and plan to wait as he still has places to visit and people to meet. This was all about Kaoru and the girls. Will they live peacefully with each other or continue their battle to steal the room? Comment invaders below and let us know if you enjoyed watching the show. Make sure to like and subscribe.